Now remember here, this is only a proposal at this point. If it goes through, I'm telling you, this will change college sports. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too, and hit the follow on Twitter. Twitter fam is growing. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, we're going to have a quick little experiment here to let me show you something, because something happened in college football which is outright draconian if you're thinking about any other realm where something can go up to this degree. Let's go over two different scenarios. I'm going to ask you guys, if you personally, think about yourself here, if you personally can purchase these items, you tell me. Let's get into that. So the first one here from Outdoor Oasis & Co. We've got the Canadian spa company Saskatoon 4-person 12-jet portable hot tub, $5,000, marked down from $64.99. So again, think about this from yourself. Can you afford $5,000? Some of you might say, I can put it on a credit card. Some of you might say, I got the cash already on hand. That's not unreasonable. Give me some financing, something like that. That's not unreasonable for most of you to afford that. Let me ask you this. Do you think you can afford the next item? So just outside of Boise, Idaho, there's a place called Melba, Idaho. And then on Zillow, it goes for 315 acres for $5 million. So that's a little facetious there. I know I'm being a little snarky, but basically what I'm saying here is that how many of you can afford that hot tub? Probably a fair amount. How many of you could afford that 315 acres in Melba, Idaho? Probably almost none of you. Now, think about this. That discrepancy between those two, a 1,000% increase from one item to the next. That is exactly what's happening here in college sports. So this came out just the other day here from an update of NCAA governance. The D1 Council proposes changes to membership requirements for FBS schools. Just to make sure that we are all clear here, D1 and FBS are similar, but they're not the same. You can be a D1 team and not be an FBS team. FBS Football Bowl Subdivision versus FCS Football Championship Subdivision. So that basically FBS is above FCS in terms of rankings and so on and so forth. There's a reason why all these FCS teams want to go be FBS. However, based on this legislation here, there's many FBS teams right now that are going to be threatened right now. In addition to the ones that want to go from FCS to FBS, they're going to have to move soon. I'll show you guys why. We continue here with the article. It says the D1 Council introduced legislative proposals that would change membership requirements for FBS schools. The council met this week in Indianapolis. Now remember here, this is only a proposal at this point. If it goes through, I'm telling you, this will change college sports. The proposals introduced into the legislative cycle will be voted on by the council at a future meeting after membership feedback is considered. If adopted, all FBS schools, all football championship, football bowl subdivision teams, schools would be required to provide 90% of the total number of allowable scholarships over a 2-year rolling period across at least 16 sports, including football. Schools would also be required to offer at least 210 scholarships each year, amounting to no less than $6 million in athletic scholarships offered. Basically, if you want to be an FBS school, if you want to be up at the top, the amount of scholarships you have to hand out has to equal 210, has to be at least $6 million. So your minimum expenses every single year are $6 million. You take your Lambert fees to every game. You make everybody pack their own lunches. Doesn't matter. It's going to cost you at least $6 million just to operate from a scholarship perspective. In addition, here's something that's really crazy. Think about this next line here. These requirements would take effect August 1st, 2027 for existing FBS schools and for those already transitioning to FBS membership. Moving forward, for schools applying to transition to FBS beginning 2024-2025 and thereafter, the requirements would have to be met by the end of the 2-year transition period. So although this would go into effect August 1st, 2027, if you decided to switch over to FBS on August 1st, 2026, you would still be required by the end of your 2-year period to have these requirements. And it says, if these requirements are adopted, previously existing requirements for football attendance at FBS schools would be removed effective immediately. There's one team we're going to talk about here really, really shortly who's going to be thrilled about that. So the next and the most important thing here is this next line. It's absolutely shocking. I mentioned before about that $5,000 to $5 million, the council also introduced new legislation that would increase the fee to transition FCS to FBS from $5,000 to $5 million. If adopted, the change would be effective for schools initiating the transition process from that point forward. The fee would be reassessed regularly. So think about this. How many of you at the beginning of this video, when I asked you, could you buy this hot tub? You said, yes, I could. So you also, as of right now, if your team transitions from FCS to FBS, you yourself can pay for your own school to transition. I mentioned before that how many of you can buy 315 acres in Melba, Idaho for $5 million? A lot of you said no. So I know that universities have a little bit more money than that. However, think about that, a 1,000 times increase in terms of the cost to go from FCS to FBS. It almost seems like they're sending a message that they don't want this to happen as much anymore. And you think about these schools here. So again, most of these are already transitioned or already been announced. So continuing on here, we've been able to come back here and see who is just going to miss this. So we saw Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State is in the state of Georgia, or the city of Atlanta. Their stadium, I mentioned before, that's that team that had the stadium requirement. Kennesaw State's football stadium holds 8,000 people. It used to be somewhere in the, at least 10,000 or more, and it was definitely not going to be a situation for Kennesaw State. But you come down here and check all these schools out that have been doing their best to move up from the FCS ranks to the FBS ranks. Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, James Madison, Jacksonville, and Savannah State don't have football teams. But then Liberty, Coastal Carolina, Charlotte, App State, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, ODU, UMass, South Alabama, UTSA, Texas State. We go down here a little bit more. I mean, where's the really, really good ones? There's a couple down here. We've got South Florida. We've got UConn. Now, UConn obviously has been doing pretty fine at basketball. But then we've got Buffalo, Mid-Tennessee State, UAB, Boise State, Central Florida. Think about Central Florida. Central Florida went from FCS 1990 to FBS 1995. In addition to that, they are also one of the earliest and the fastest teams to go from FCS to a Power 5 conference. They are in the Big 12. Now, Boise State's trying to get on that. Anyways, Big 12, call us. Just do it. Just do it. And I don't know if this is directly the reason why here, but there does seem to be, and again, people always mention the Power 2 breakaway, FBS breakaway, whatever the situation is there. And that might happen in terms of, governorship and this and that. Again, I don't really know there, but I do know that a lot of people think the line is being drawn, below the SEC and the Big Ten, and everybody else is out. I actually think it's a little short-sighted. I think there's some limitations in how many games you can play. There's limitations in how many people actually watch, and there's actually some value in the ACC, Pac-12, and the Big 12, in addition to the 5G5 conference. I think there's a lot more value there than the SEC and the Big Ten want to admit. But again, we're not going to go there. I will say that the fact that there's a lot of teams that are trying to move up from FCS to FBS right now. I think the CFP, when it expands out to 12 teams, it's going to bring in a ton of money there. There's just a lot of money going around. So all these teams see the opportunity to get up to this point, and they're trying to do it as fast as possible. It sounds like the NCAA is trying to slow this down, because we saw this absolutely insane situation. Not only was one team going to come up, not only two, but legitimately 10 teams were planning to come up and form their own FBS conference per a report. We come here and check this out. It's absolutely shocking. So it says, according to the report, the remaining football members of the ASUN Conference and the Western Athletic Conference have each signed an agreement to form a new league. The schools include 4 former ASUN, Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky, Central Arkansas, and Northern Alabama, and 5 from the WAC, Stephen F. Austin, Abilene Christian, Utah Tech, Southern Utah, and Tarleton State. The 10th school, UT Rio Grande, doesn't currently sponsor football, but plans to bring their football program in 2025 and compete in the WAC. So you think about that. We went from, one team every once in a while, one team 95, a couple teams in 96, like 97, 2016, 2017, to the point where 10 of them are like, yeah, we're coming up. You can see the fact that and again, I think the NCAA is trying to draw a distinction here, trying to be like, okay, it used to be $5,000. Is that really realistic? I don't know. Anyways, I think that another really interesting conversation here is who this is going to most affect. Let's go to the FBS map to kind of break this down. So one of the real clear delineations between the haves and the have-nots is in the Greater Lakes region. So you see the fact that those green dots there, those are going to be the Big Ten, whereas the brown dots are the MAC. They very much, overlap with each other. You've got the red in the center there, which is the Big 12. You've got the orange, which is the SEC. You've got the kind of cyan blue over here, which is the ACC. You've got the dark blue, which is the American, and then you've got the the white and the green, or excuse me, the white and the pinkish. Is that a purple? Is that a light pink? Whatever. Down here, which is Conference USA and the Sun Belt. So if you think about the situation here, the Big Ten is not going to pull from the MAC. They've kind of got their thing going. The Big Ten, the MAC is almost like their own feeder. More than likely, the Big Ten is not going to call up any FCS schools. They'd call up some MAC schools. The MAC would be a situation where they could. However, more than likely, the MAC is not going to get called up to the Big Ten anytime soon. The only team that's even in consideration will be Buffalo, and their football program's not allowed there. They are a AAU institution, so they would be considered to be called up. Then you come over here to the Big 12. The Big 12 is, especially with the addition of West Virginia and then Cincinnati and then UCF, some of these aren't updated all the way. But they're kind of a team that can spread out a little bit also with BYU. It's kind of a borderline national conference there, the Big 12 is. You think about the ACC, they're not going to pull from the FCS ranks. They would pull from the Sun Belt, the Big 12 potentially. I know that Big 12 fans don't want to hear that, but that more than likely could happen there. Pull from the Big 12, also be able to pull from the, like I said, the Sun Belt and then the American. And then you think about the American. The American wouldn't pull from the FCS. They would pull from the Sun Belt and Conference USA. The Sun Belt would pull from Conference USA. They already have. There's two conferences here that are going to be most affected by this. There's also a pretty clear delineation here between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. I know there's a lot of people out there I have a lot of Big 12 fans who like to give the Pac-12 some crap here because they're not as strong as a football conference as they can be. But I do think there is a clear delineation between them and the Mountain West. So the Mountain West because of geography and the Conference USA because of sheer weakness. Those are the only two conferences that are going to be threatened by this. Obviously, we know the Mountain West is losing San Diego State. They want to add Western members. They might expand east. I don't really know. But again, there's been rumors out there. I started a couple of the rumors of a really good 4 addition would be Montana, Montana State, North Dakota State, and South Dakota State. Those all would come in. However, think about that. If they don't do it by 2025, their fees goes from $5,000 to $5 million, a 1,000% increase. Again, if you're the Mountain West, you have to act soon if you're going to do so. If you're Conference USA, you have to act soon if you're going to do so. But again, whether or not they need to is a different question here. But I do know if they're like, we've been thinking about it, you got to get on the horn here because it's going to get real expensive real quick for those teams. So the FBS is going to vote on a situation where to move from FCS to FBS would be, instead of a $5,000 fee, it would be a 1,000 times increase to $5 million. You can tell. And again, a lot of people say it's power to breakaway, power to breakaway. We are going to see some sort of strong breakaway from the FBS and everybody else. It's already been mentioned by Ohio State. They've been talking about some things there. The fact that they see those 130-ish teams are clear delineation between, FCS, D2, NAIA, and D3. There's a huge gap there. So I think that if you're going to move, you saw the fact this is going to go into effect on August 1st, 2027, which 2-year retro. So you got to get your moves. If you're the Mountain West or Conference USA, you don't really have the ability to add from any other conference. You got to go to the FCS ranks if you want to add. Who are you going to do? You better do it soon because it's going to get expensive real quick. All right, guys, get in the comments right here. And again, I think it's absolutely draconian that they're doing that much of an increase just because I just believe in some semblance of simplicity and some semblance of consistency. But a 1,000 times increase is absolutely shocking. You can tell they're trying to stop something there. But again, get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know your Conference USA, your Mountain West. Do you do it now or do you wait? We don't know. We'll wait. I personally think I would do it right now because if you don't, your costs, which again will be transferred to you if you add a new team in, will be from $5,000 to $5 million. Got to move quick. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. And also follow me on Twitter. Twitter fam is growing. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you guys later. I am out.